Did you read Shakespeare? Or have you heard about this? This life is just like a role in this play, and the next life is a role in another play. And just look at yourself how many roles you're playing. When you're with your parents, you play the role of a child. When you're with your lover, then you play the role of a lover. When you have kids, you play the role of a parent. When you're at work, you play the role of, a co-worker or the boss or whatever. And when you're in a pub, you play that kind of role. Each time you adjust to the environment and change the way of your behavior. You don't behave, in the family, when you have kids and children, like when you are in the bar, or in a disco, or in work. You constantly change the way of behaving, acting to the environment. Isn't it bothersome? Doesn't it trouble you? Just being yourself all the time, it's so easy, wherever you go, you just are what you are. But you're afraid, that people view you in a bad way. And this you want to counteract. You don't like to view it as a bad person. Of course we are bad. So admit it. And we are good. Admit it. We both have these things. We have good and bad inside us. And that makes life so much easier. Just admit it. Maybe it's right. Then we can even change it. But of course, if somebody says something bad about it, we immediately defend ourselves. We not only defend ourselves, but we defend our close friends as well. Isn't it? Immediately, we don't even listen to what he says. We don't even answer. If somebody calls me an asshole, I ask, oh, why do you think I am? That's a different approach, isn't it? No, I'm not, It's your first reaction. No, I'm not, It can't be, You must see me. I am like this and I am like this, and all your views come up. Observe it the next time, it happens. And see how this play, of ego or self-view comes up. It's amazing. Just give in. It's just the way he views you, You can't change his views. And you can't comfort everybody in this world. There will always people who like you. There will always people who hate you. Even the Lord Buddha, wasn't liked by everybody. He was hated by a community of people who want to do him harm, wasn't he? When you read the suttas, you will hear that. So even the Lord Buddha wasn't liked. The Lord Buddha was the highest being that we encountered in the last 5,000 years. But that doesn't mean he was liked by all the people. He was liked by quite a few people. And by quite a few influential people. Yes. And quite a few, or majority of people took up the practice under him. Yes. But that doesn't mean that everybody agreed with what he said, or everybody agreed with what he did. People criticized him the same way. It's a way of people, to criticize. To make one feel better. Because if I can criticize somebody else, I'm better than he. Am I? That's why we love to listen to bad news. It makes us feel better, We are not as terrible as they think. We are much better, If we would only hear stories, how of people, who do extremely good, we would feel so bad. giving this amount of money, serving other people, and then we look at ourselves and we would feel so terrible. So that's why all the news and all the newspapers and all the magazines, always criticize other people, make them bad. Depict a lot of bad news. They sell good. People will want to feel good. They know inherently, that they are not good. Yeah, everybody knows, he has its fault, but he doesn't want to admit its fault. So he wants to feel himself, if I can criticize somebody else, then I'm, above him. That's what we think. But we are not. Changing the wrongs that are in us, or the unwholesome things that are in us, that makes us a good person. Just having the intention, the really true intention to change ourselves. Some things we cannot change immediately. But having the true intention to change ourselves, certainly makes us better people. But that doesn't mean that we can look down on other people. This looking down is also a kind of wrong view that we have. Who are we to look down? You should always look up. Things that we haven't yet accomplished. Not looking down, Look how he is, Look how he dresses or how he behaves, He's not a good monk or his practice is not good. No. Look up to Tanachan, and you can't find anything. You find a lot of things that you need to correct within yourself. All the time, every time you look, you will see something that you haven't done yet, that you haven't accomplished yet. But it's difficult if you don't have a person like him. Then of course you can get conceited. And it happened to me. And it's completely disastrous to your practice. It's a disaster. It throws you back years. I've made all these mistakes. That's why I can tell you not to make, or remind you, or ask you not to make the same mistakes, because I know how disastrous they can be. And there are three things Tanacha Mahabua just doesn't accept. A monk who uses a phone, he get kicked out without any question. He get kicked out immediately. This is not within the monk's behavior. A monk who goes into the women area, he's kicked out immediately. Not even a question, even if he has a reason, he's kicked out immediately. He's not allowed to. And a monk who shows conceit, who displays conceit. These are the three reasons where he doesn't give in. Or he didn't used to give in. So he kicks them out immediately. These kind of people shouldn't be here. Conceit, Thinking that I'm better, or thinking that I don't need to do what he says. I saw one, when he kicked out a few of them. For us, it's difficult to see. At that time, I didn't understand. Only years later, I understood. It's difficult for us to see if somebody has conceit, or if he's on the road to conceit. It's very difficult. How can we say? Just expressing one's opinion, is this the first stage? Opinions that differ with what is taught. That is the first stage of conceit. Not listening, and then thinking, maybe I know it better. And Westerners all fall for this. They might listen, or they might, when they're going to study, whatever they study, is it at university or is it some sort of craft? Huh? They listen and they're really intent. They're really intent of learning a lot. But after 2 or 3 years, once they see, they can work with it, once they see that they can deal with it, they start to become clever. Cleverer than their teacher. It doesn't matter if it's a master of craft, master of art, or if it's a teacher at the university. The moment we think, this what he did was wrong, or that what he did was wrong, or this I can make better. That's where it starts. And in the end, we don't listen to this teacher anymore. And that is the end of our teacher-disciple relationship. And if it's in Dhamma, that's the end of our practice. And then we look for the next teacher, and then it happens the same thing again. 2 or 3 years we stick with him, because, is it different? And then we get cleverer again. And then we go to the next. And in the end, what have we achieved? Nothing. We evaded the problem of getting rid of our own views and opinions. Admitting that this person, of course we should have some trust. And it's up to you how much trust you have in me. That determines, how much you believe me and how much you can go on with your practice. The more trust, the better you can go on. The less trust, the more difficult it is. This determines how your practice will develop. Also, the Lord Buddha gave us some advice about it. He gave us some advice about the location. He said, if you find a location, because monks at that time, used to mostly to train on their own. So he gave the advice about the location. He said, if there's a location where there's ample of food and where it's very convenient, but we notice after a while our practice is not going to develop, we should leave this place. And if there's a place, and then we find a place that is extremely frightening, that where we hardly get any food, where we hardly get any of the 4 necessities of life, but our practice is developing, we should stay on. And the same thing he says for a teacher. He says, if we are with a teacher, it's very convenient and it's a very good relationship and he helps us, but our practice, after a while, our practice does not go on. Our practice does not develop. We should leave this teacher. Immediately. And then he says, if there is a teacher, we hardly get on. But our practice develops very good. We should stay on. And then he even said, and that is very common in times, if that teacher kicks you out, you should come back. You should come back. That's what the Lord Buddha teaches us, or teaches his monk. If a teacher kicks you out, you should come back. And this is something where the Western mind cannot agree to. If we are kicked out by a teacher, we get offended. And we will never return again. Who is he? I've seen it. Because I kicked out a few people. And they all got offended. This is not the way, this is not the reason why I kick out. The reason is because they don't want to listen. So actually, when they are kicked out, they should reflect about it. And that's what happens here. In this monastery, quite a few monks got kicked out, but they came back. And the moment they went and paid the respect to Tanacha and said, I want to, I saw my fault, I apologize for my fault, and I want to do better. He accepts them back. He doesn't have a grudge against them. And that, for us, from our Western point of education, it is completely, it's nearly impossible to accept. Just to come back to somebody, who really, in our sense, who really hurt us, who really offended us. When I talk about being aware or being wary of our sexual fantasies, what are sexual fantasies? Sexual fantasies are not only fantasies about intercourse, sexual intercourse, but they start with wanting to see somebody of the other sex, or if you like the same sex, the same sex. If you want to see somebody, it starts with a sexual fantasy. I want to see somebody. The next step is I want to be close to this person. The next step is I want to talk to this person. I want to get him to know. The next step is, I want to do something with this person together, having memories that we can share, having things that we in common, and then it only then it starts into wanting to touch, and the last step, is the sexual intercourse. But starting from the beginning, just wanting to see somebody, wanting to know about somebody, wanting to talk to a person, wanting to be close to a person, wanting to do something with a person. That is all, or that falls all in the category of sexual fantasies. Desire for being together, desire for communicating together. And communication not only in the sense of talking, but also in the physical life. Be wary of that. It starts with a little, and we don't even think, we think it's harmless, Why not? Why not seeing somebody? Why not talking to somebody? Why not doing something with somebody? But then we are already in the middle of it. And it's difficult to stop from there. So see it in the beginning. See it how it evolves. See it how it slowly evolves. And be wary of it. Don't allow it. Or the moment you are mindful of it, stop it. It is a big issue. Sexual desire is a big issue. And it is especially a big issue in the practice, in the Buddhist practice, because there, celibacy, no sexual conduct at all. And no sexual conduct, when you look at the rules of a monk, a monk is not allowed to talk more than 6 sentences to a woman alone. See? That is already sexual misconduct if he talks more. And then, not just look at our modern communication. Mail or phone, especially phone. You call a woman or you call a man, and you talk for hours. It's already in the terms of our practice, sexual misconduct. What's the reason? There's no reason. We just want to talk to. Where's the harm? We don't see the harm. We just hear the voice, and our feeling increases. Our feeling increases to want to see, and then want to go on, want to touch, and want to physically act. It develops so slowly, and it develops in the background. And it's a very common way. When next time you go into the cities, just watch men and women, how they interact. And if you're mindful enough, you will see that play going on. Or even if you observe it on Saturdays and Sundays here in the monastery, if you see young people connecting to each other, looking at each other, then getting up, and then sitting close to the other person and starting to talk, and then this and this and this and this. For our practices, it's dangerous. It's enormous power. Behind sexual desire, there's enormous power. And as I said before, it is a devastating hot wind that turns everything that is in its way into a desert. So once our practice is going and we get hold, or this wind gets hold of us, that's the end of our practice. When we are monks or when we are nuns, then we can't. We just can't let this thing happen. As difficult as it might be in the beginning, if we do not have the weapon, to turn off this wind, to make this wind stop, then there will be no chance that we survive as a monk or as a nun. The first year when I was in England, I saw so many monks disrobing. Most of the monks getting married to a nun, some of the monks running away with women. If we don't develop the method to cut down or to invert or to change the view of excitement with the view of unpleasantness, to cut down that hot wind of sexual desire, we will sooner or later fall for it. Don't think that you won't fall for it. No, I'm strong, I won't fall for it. And you can be sure that one day, sooner or later, you will fall for it. Don't say never. I've seen so many people. No, I'm not disrobing, and then 3 or 4 years later, they were. I never said. I just thought to myself, it is pretty unlikely that I'm going to disrobe. But I never thought, I will never disrobe. I said, there is a chance. Maybe I meet somebody, and I can't hold back. So I leave it open. I always leave it open. I don't know what is going to happen in the future. I really don't know. So how can I say now? Of course it is unlikely. Of course, I am not at the moment I am not willing. But tomorrow I don't know how my practice is. Maybe it's extremely difficult, and then this hot wind comes in, and I'm swept away by it. It happens. And it is difficult when you look at the stories of the monks. Once we reduce, once we really attach, or we really practice our rules, When you look at it, what all goes out, what all is the source of this of sexual desire. It goes into power. Now, as a monk, we cut down on power. We just live in the open space, live alone. So, we don't have any power over other people. We don't have any power over other monks. It cuts down on glory. So we are not a famous teacher, or we are nothing. Huh? We're just alone in the forest with the animals. It cuts down on that. So what comes up? What comes up is the source of all this. It's the source of sensual desire. It's the source of sexual desire. And don't underestimate it. The moment you really cut down all these outside things, you closed all the door. You didn't become a teacher. You didn't become famous. You don't have a lot of money. And you're not really especially good or especially honored or have a lot of glory around you. Now what is left? Left is the pure energy. It's a pure energy of sexual desire. It can be as strong as an atomic bomb. It explodes, and nothing is left of it. When you hear some of the stories of the monks of this forest tradition, some of them, they were caught by this storm, and it was very, very, very difficult for them to resist. But one of the monks, he was determined, I'm not going to fall for it. So after hours, the storm passed by. And the next time it was impossible. He said, I'm not going to make that. So, then he told himself, it is better to die than to fall for it. So he took a razor blade and put it to his throat, just with the intention, he really had the intention to cut his throat. In that moment, he pulled in, that storm left. The power of sexual desire was gone, completely gone, completely eradicated. His determination was so strong not to give in. It's better for me to die, to really die, than just to give in to that. Now, can you imagine that power? You might not feel it right now, and you might not really feel it for the next years, or maybe next decades. But once your practice is coming close to it, where you close all the doors of sensual desire, then you will feel the power. Then you will feel this extreme power. And then you might understand the stories of these acharyas who try to cope with it in this way. And what does it show us? It shows us that the kilesas who produce this energy are actually afraid of death. Now at the moment, we are fighting the kilesas. We are fighting. We are waging war against the kilesas. But they always come with doubt. Doubt that this is the right way. Doubt that it makes sense to practice. Or they come with fear. Fear of injury. Fear of death. If you do that too long, you might break your back, or you really hurt your leg, or you really hurt your knee. I've heard it all, I have heard all the stories of the people, who gave up practice because they really feel, they do some really harm to their body. So, the kilesas come with this, with fear. And they also come with fear of death at some times. If you go on, we are surely to die. And we always give in. We give in into doubt, we give in to the fear, or we give in to the pain. Now think very carefully. With this example of this monk, putting the razor blade to the throat and determined to cut it. He used actually the weapon of fear against the kilesas. Because the kilesas are afraid to lose their playground. And they see the body as their playground. So if this body dies, they have nothing to play around anymore. That's why they gave in. That's the reason why they gave in. So once our practice really advances, we can use the weapon that the kilesas used against us, against them. And that is really powerful. Whatever the kilesas tell me, I doubt. Why? I don't believe it. Why do you say this? Maybe this is true. Maybe this isn't true. Maybe what you just tell me is not true. Maybe what I just think is not true. And you will see them. You will see it. If you use it, or if fear, okay, don't worry. If I die, then I'll die. You will see the house of yourself, just dwindling down like a card house. Look, they're shaking. When you use the same methods that they use against you to oppress you, because that's what they're actually afraid of. They're afraid of dying. They're afraid of losing their playground. And the body is their playground. And the senses of the body is their playground. So they won't lose that. They won't give that up easily. They will give in. And they will disappear for a while. But as long as we think this is us, the fear is us, the pain is us, the doubt is us, then we have problems. Then we will give in, or the Dhamma will give in. We will get up from our practice because we are afraid we are doing some injury to our body. Or we doubt that this is really the way, or this teacher is really that good. We doubt. Today he's talking like this, tomorrow he's just talking the opposite. Maybe he really doesn't know. Why should I do this? It's only tough, it's only difficult. So, at the moment they're using this weapon against us. No, we use the method of anicca, anatta, dukkha, to counteract them. And once we counteract them, and say, this is not me, this does not belong to me, this is not myself. Then, once we counteracted them, then we can use them against them. And then we can see something very interesting. The house of self will just dwindle down, just like a card house. They have no power over us anymore, because they only can use fear, doubt, and pain, and the fear of death against us, to make us doing what they want, to make us playing in their game. If we don't follow the rules of their game, they are lost. They are completely lost. They don't know what to do. They're completely helpless, no? You just don't follow their rules anymore. You say, my rule of the game is the Dhamma. And the Dhamma says, I practice samadhi and I practice investigation. And in investigation we see how we can cut down. We question this and we question that. We cut it up. We put it into bits and pieces until we understand the puzzle. That's our way of practice. Question. Whatever the kilesas tell us, we question. Is that really true? What does it mean? And then they come up with another answer. And what does that mean? And then they come up with another answer. And maybe after the 10th answer, they don't know any answer anymore, and then they are quiet. They are at loss, and we have gained a victory. So if you know the weapons, use them against them. This is the road to success. Don't fall for them, use them against them. Just like Tanaja Mahaprabhu says, if you get angry, use them against the kilesas who produce that anger. Really be fierce with them. Use this anger, this is a fast road to success. People who tend to become very angry, or who are of the anger type, they can use it the moment they use them against the kilesa. They are developing very fast. People who are very angry can be extremely good soldiers. Because they don't care about themselves. They care only about, the anger against the other person. But we don't direct our anger against another person or thing or what or this or that. We direct them towards the kilesas who produce them. With pain it's more difficult, but the kilesas are also the ones who produce this pain. But there are also the ones who are afraid of this pain. They are the ones who want to give up, because the pain for them is too great, too big. They actually don't know what they are. The kilesas, in the end, you will see that they actually don't know what they are. They actually don't understand that they are producing this fear, and that they are producing this pain. So we have to show them. Show them by counteracting. But I know this is difficult to understand. We have to get quite some way to see that work. All the time, I'm talking about waging a war. Waging a war against the kilesa. What is our gain? Our gain is freedom. Freedom from the kilesas, freedom from dukkha. And dukkha is not only pain and suffering. Dukkha is all sorts of restlessness, dis-ease, uncomfortable feelings. That's all dukkha. And every one of us has it to a big amount. We cannot neglect it. We can forget about it. And we forget very easily when we look at all these exciting moments we had in our life. All these exciting moments the kilesas promise us in our next life. Or in the next month. Or in the next year. If we do this, we will be happy. All this sentence, it's constantly coming up. If I change my posture, I will be happy. If I change my city, I will be happy. If I change my partner, I will be happy. They all say this. If I change my work, I will be happy. If I change my life, I will be happy. Now I'm unhappy, I want to become a monk. That will make me happy. But where does happiness arise? It arises now at this very moment, in our very own heart. Changing the outside doesn't change the inside. It's that what we are mostly fooled by. We constantly want to change the outside. We want to change people to think in a different way. We want to change people to act in a different way. We want to change the environment. We want to change the world. But we don't want to change ourselves. It's so difficult to change ourselves. It's much more difficult to change ourselves than to change the world. That's why a lot of people put all their effort in, changing the world, changing their partner, or changing this or changing that. But all the unhappiness, all what needs to be changed is our own heart. That is the only thing that needs to be changed. And it's the most difficult thing to change. Now what do we gain? We will gain freedom. What does it mean, freedom? We don't even know it. When we start practice, we don't even know what freedom means. It's just a big promise. It's just like the freedom fighters, a country that was oppressed for 100 or 1,000 of years. It's suddenly rising up and says, we don't like this oppressor anymore. They don't even know what is going. They just want to be free. And that's what they fight for. That's what they give their lives for. Or their arms and their hands, or this part of the body or that part of the body that got injured. They don't mind that. They just have this idea of freedom from the oppressor. And our way to understand the freedom from the oppressor, what does it mean? There are two ways to sneak in, to get a sneak preview of this. The chicken certainly has something to say. So where do we get our sneak preview? We get it from the Upachara Samadhi. When there is some sort of peacefulness. When there is some sort of objectiveness. That's where we get a sneak preview of what it might be, what freedom means. A much better preview we will get when we go down into Appana Samadhi. In complete silence. That's where we really get some idea of what it means to be free. And this is something that even the Lord Buddha encouraged us to do. He said the path to deliverance, the path to freedom is so difficult. If there wouldn't be anything that would be better, nobody in the world would go. So we use it. And he encouraged the people, to go and rest in the jhanas or rest in samadhi. And we rest in the Upachara Samadhi or rest in the Appana Samadhi to get a feeling for what it is, to be free of the power, not to be oppressed for a moment or for a while, be it a minute or be it 5 minutes or be it an hour. Not to be oppressed, not constantly be commanded around by the kilesas. Do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. I want this, I want that. I don't want this, I don't want that. I hate this, I don't hate this. I like this. Constantly, all the time we are commanded by the kilesas. The moment we turn into Upachara Samadhi, these kilesas will stop, they will have no power. And that's the first time we experience it, and we can really breathe freely. And freely is a synonym with liberty. And that's what we're looking for. When we wage a war, then we have to know the reason why we wage a war. We want to wage a war against our own oppressors. And the oppressors are nothing else than the kilesas, or what the power that is behind it is avijja. Freedom. Just like in the 70s, Janis Joplin said, freedom is just another word of nothing left to lose. When we are in deep state of samadhi, there is nothing left to lose because everything is complete. We cannot lose anything, we have gained everything. The moment we enter in Appana Samadhi, we have gained holiness. I mean holiness in the sense we are not separated from anything anymore. We gained wholeness. The first time in our life we are not anxious being separated from this or separated from that. We are complete. We are complete in ourselves. We are whole. And the whole cannot lose anything. Only bits and pieces who are made of bits and pieces can lose. And they are afraid of losing this and losing that. So this is the goal. This is the goal of our practice. This is the goal of our waging war. We want to get rid of the oppressor. We want to gain freedom. Not freedom in the worldly sense, but in the spiritual sense. So we are not worldly freedom fighters, but we are spiritual freedom fighters. That's what we are. And we should keep that in mind, and we should remind ourselves once in a while that this is our goal. And remind ourselves when we think about next life will be much easier, because this life we have done a lot of bun, we have done a lot of merit. How can the next life be better if the next moment is not better? How can it be? It's an illusion, it's a delusion we fall for. Maybe the next life is worse, because some of the bad karma is coming up, tracking down to the health. And even if we have done a lot of merit, and will receive it in our next life, then we are too lazy to practice, because everything is fine. We have hardly any dukkha to practice. There's no need to practice. We are all coming here because there's a need to practice. We have so much dukkha in our heart. We have so much dissatisfaction in our heart. There's so much restlessness in our heart. That's why we actually started on the way to practice. When we just spend all the money that we've gained through our work on holiday, we feel it's a nice life. So in the next life, when we have a lot of merit, and we spend all the merits, we don't even think about practice, because we don't feel the need to practice. We feel satisfied, completely contented, just like somebody, who has finished his work, and just lives off his work, he doesn't have to worry about this, and he doesn't have to worry about that. He doesn't have to worry where he gets his next meal from. He can afford whatever he wants to. So why should he practice? It would be stupid. Enjoying one's life like this. And also, remind yourself, if you think about the next life, then think about, when we think about our next life, I will do this and I will do that. When we think about our life, we think from the age of 18 or 20. We don't think about the age below 18. Or do you want to go back to primary school? Do you want to go back to high school? Do you want to go back to university? You don't really want to that. Do you want to learn to walk again? Do you want to learn to speak again? Do you want to learn how to use this body? Do you want to learn to think again? 18 years of the next life is just preoccupied with these things. And if you remember, all our wish in the moment we were 11, the time we actually could think, we were waiting for the age of 18 to be free, to do whatever we wanted to do. So 18 years of life is 18 years of dukkha for the next life. Dukkha to learn this, dukkha to train this. And it's a long training period. We know, primary school is 4 years, high school is 8 to 9 years. And if you want to go on, university is another 4 or 6 years. You really want to do that? If you think about your life, reflect about this life. And when we think about our life, we never think about below the age of 18. Why is that so? Now think. When you have difficulties in your practice, reflect about it. It always helped me, say, do you want to be born again? And the moment I realized I don't want, I put extreme effort in my practice now, at that moment. Because I want to make sure that this life is my last life. You might want to make sure that this life you reach Sodapanna, that you enter the stream, that you have a safe haven to go into. Remind yourself that the first 18 years of our life wasn't all this fun. That it was actually, most of it was dukkha. Extreme dukkha. And we were just waiting to get old enough to be able to do what we wanted to do. Isn't it? Isn't it like this? This we always can reflect on. Use your mind not only for mental masturbation. Use it to do some really helpful. Ask yourself, what do you want to do with this life? Ask yourself, when the practice is going tough, ask yourself, do I want to be reborn? Do I want to go through all this shit again? And when we are monks or nuns, do I want to disrobe? Do I really want to be reordained again? It might help. Of course, when we are a lay person, we can always go back to the world and then come back. Come back to practice after we get dissatisfied again, we come back to practice, until we are satisfied again, then we go back into the world until we become dissatisfied, then we go back to practice until we find a sort of satisfaction, then we go back and we end. Nothing else in the endless life or endless cycle of death and birth, death and birth, death and birth. It's not only the physical death and birth, it's also our mental death and birth. This thought stops, this memory stops, that thought is born, that memory is born. Now use your energy to direct towards something that is wholesome. And with this I stop my talk.